practices for a right hip high or a leg length inequality where the right leg is longer coming up next. If you've been told that you have a leg length inequality, one leg is longer than the other, what that really means is that your pelvis is showing up so that you have one hip that's sitting higher than the other. I prefer to think of it this way because actually it's quite rare that the bone lengths are different. Yes, that happens sometimes, but most of the time there's something in the soft tissue that has made one hip seem like it's higher than the other, or one leg is longer than the other. If you are told you have a leg length inequality, that's what we call a dim, like danger in me. That's like, oh, that's hopeless. I have nothing I can do about that. But if you see it as a hip height inequality and it's just something in the soft tissues, which is most of the time, now there's hope. Now there's that sense of safety that gives you some empowerment, like, oh, there is something I can do about this. Well, and there is something that you can do about it. It might take some time to be able to shift those tensional systems that have created one hip higher than the other, but there is a short practice that if you do every day is going to significantly improve and start shifting that for you. Because what happens when you have one hip sitting higher than the other? That means that your low back muscles on one side are scrunching the spine on that side, flaring it open on the other, could lead to herniated discs or a protruding disc on that opposite side, the lower hip side. It's very common for people with one hip higher than the other to have sciatica symptoms, SI joint dysfunction, low back pain, changes in their gait and the way they walk, butt pain, difficulty sleeping at night, all these things, right, that go along with it. So there's a little bit of understanding and a couple of things that you need to address, and you want to address the two sides of your body differently. What is profound about this work, about FreeBody, is that we look at what's long and what's short, and we want to open the parts that are short, and we want to strengthen the parts that are long. So when you have a hip height inequality, you need to address on the high hip side the low back muscles, quadratus lumborum, also the obliques, a little bit in the side of the belly. You need to address the inner thighs on that high hip side or the longer leg side. You also need to address the outer hip, the glutes, glute min and glute med. Here's the thing. Gluteus medius on your outer hip pulls the pelvis down toward the femur, compressing the hip joint, driving the femur more deeply into that hip joint, and it really can look like you have your other leg is longer. But it might just be that that gluteus medius has pulled it down so much on that one side that your pelvis is just jacked up on the other side. So what helps gluteus medius to do that is gluteus minimus, which can lead to tension in that muscle, can lead to a whole host of problems, and like sciatica, and the tensor fascia lata TFL. So to take the confusion out for people, because this is such a common problem and something I get asked about often, like, what do I do? How do I address this? I created a program for what to do if you have a right hip high and what to do if you have a left hip high. So if you have a right hip high or your right leg is longer, you're going to get that video next. And if you have a left hip high or the left hip is long, left leg is longer, you're going to get that video. So understanding that this is a piece of the puzzle, your entire body ultimately needs to be addressed, and you want to do big movement breaks, open, free the fascia, all the things that we do here. You want to watch your posture. You want to make sure you're not like sitting with the same leg crossed over all the time. That reinforces that hip high. You want to stand with your weight on both feet. So you're going to want to look at the active posture teaching that I do, and we'll put a link to those videos down below. But if you do this practice, and it's 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes, you're going to be releasing the essential pieces that are short and then strengthening the essential parts that are held long, that have gotten weak, because long muscles get weak. And you'll be really effective in leveling your pelvis. I trust that this video is going to help you. Let's get into the practice. Hello to my friends with a right hip high. This practice that I'm going to show you right now is an excellent practice to start your day with. Gets your pelvis a little more level, gets the tissues softening and releasing. You can take this quick break at any time. This is not to replace the longer, more extensive releasing of the inner thighs, releasing of the outer hip, releasing of the low back, releasing of the psoas. Like those are other practices that you'll need to do sometimes. But if you start your day like this each day, just a few minutes, you are going to see a world of difference in your body and feel so much better. So a reminder, with the right hip high, your right inner thighs are short, your left outer hip is short, and your right low back is short. We always want to treat all three of these areas, release them a little bit before we want to treat maybe your right hip or something. So we're going to use just the soft ball. I do have the smaller, firmer ball in case to get into that left outer hip, but you can do it all with the soft ball, especially in the low back. It's just so good. Okay, you will need your yoga block. If you haven't purchased a yoga block yet and you're still using the FreeBody box, that's fine, as long as that box is holding up for you. At some point for the long haul of your whole life, you're gonna wanna have a yoga block. So let's start by releasing quadratus lumborum in the right low back and a little bit in the obliques. So you're going to come onto your right side, take that soft ball, wedge it in between the top rim of the pelvis and the lowest rib. Here it is, wedged in between the top rim of my pelvis and the lowest rib. And sink yourself down. You can slide that elbow out a little further, sinking down onto that ball. Just releasing obliques and trying to create more space here. When the right hip is high, this space gets short and sticky. All the obliques, transverse abdominis, feels good. And with the soft ball, it's not too much. Now, you're going to lift that top knee, put that foot behind you a little bit, scoot your body a little forward and drop back so that the ball is going now toward your back. I'm keep scooping my body forward until I feel it bump into the side of my spine. There it is. And I'm just going to sink. It feels so good. You could just relax and lay your head down, or you can stay lifted. Just play with that angle. It's going to shift what your experience is. Notice my hips are not stacked anymore. That top hip dropped back, which is why I lifted my knee and put my foot down to support myself. You scoot the body forward, sink in. Now, play with lifting the left hip toward the armpit and relax. Lift the left hip toward the armpit. What that will do is drive that quadratus lumborum into the ball, help those trigger points release. So keep sliding the left hip up. Slide the left hip up, relax. 2 more. Slide the left hip up, relax. 1 more. Slide the left hip up and relax. That's so good. Okay, now, little stretch, open that right side. Now we're going to release those right inner thighs. So you're going to take that block or your box, whichever you're using. Come on your left side, place that ball right at the top of the inner thigh along the inseam of your pants, right at the intersection of the pelvis. Drop that ball down in. Now here, you're going through several layers of inner thigh muscles. Adductor brevis, adductor longus, little pectineus in there. gracilis, all these muscles are passing through here. So you're compressing a big area at once. Super quick, super fast way to do this. If you want more pressure, turn towards your elbows and maybe lift that left hip up a little bit. That's going to drive more pressure into the ball. If you need less pressure, just keep that left hip down, maybe even lay on your left side. That's going to make less pressure on the ball. I want more pressure. I'm going to lift my left side of my pelvis up. Just a steady, deep compression. Deep compression, steady compression is really soothing to the nervous system. Ah, so good. Ah, it feels so good. All right. Now we're going to move into the outer left hip. Right hip is high, outer left hip is low, which means those outer left hip muscles are short. So we're going to start with lifting up and sliding that ball onto the side of the pelvis. So remember, our friends glute min and glute med are in here. Glute min right on the side of the pelvis, sinking down, taking some deep breaths. Glute min right on the side of the pelvis. If you're really excited about it, yes, you can take that small ball like we do and sink in. Much more exciting, much more exciting. If you're not ready for that, go ahead and put that larger ball back in there, the soft ball. Drop the top hip forward a little bit, give a little love to tensor fascia lata. Now you're going to drop that top hip back, little glute med love, top rim of the pelvis. Notice I just dropped that right hip back. Ball is at the top of the back of my pelvis. So good. Search for a little tender spot, way up high, top rim of the pelvis, almost in the low back. Ooh, there I have a tender spot right there. Relax, sink into the ball, take a few breaths. In the belly. All right, last step, moving off of that. Oh my gosh, so good. Moving off of that, we're going to go into a side plank to lift the left side of the pelvis up. We're also going to add in a leg lift. So check this out. On your left side, knees are stacked, really simplest way. On your left side, knees are stacked. Push the pelvis up toward the sky. Push it up. Quadratus lumborum is lifting and pushing that pelvis up. I need to adjust just a little tiny bit. Okay, now from here, push that pelvis up. Now from here, the right leg can lift. That's going to be hard for a while. So you keep it down. Start practicing. Can you lift that right thigh up? Push the pelvis up higher toward the sky. One more breath. Come down. Do a couple gentle twists. Just moving. And that's it. That's our quick essential practice. This is a quick practice that I do in the morning. My right hip always used to sit high. Now is so much better. I never have those sciatica symptoms. I do this practice a little bit because I know that tendency in my body. And I'll do it in the morning a little bit before I go for my morning walk. So great way to start your day. I am so happy to offer this quick practice for you. I hope it helps you and serves you well. I'll see you in the next video.